Hey, back again. I'm Tomlin's Nyback. This is 365 days towards racial change. We're at day 289 here, moving right along. We've covered a lot of ground, a lot of material, and got plenty of material left. We'll be spilling over into 2020 here, and which I think is appropriate, especially in light of our political climate, how power is configured, maybe exposing some weaknesses and deficiencies in this American process experiment that's been going on for 100 years. It's just a country that's never quite got it right. There's too much bloodshed. I mean, domestically, it'd be different if we were always fending off issues from the outside, but there's not a group that has uh, no complaint. I got too many negatives in that sentence. What am I trying to say here? You got the Native Americans, black people, women, right? I mean, everybody essentially, except in general, white men. And with the encountering resistance and issues and troubles, struggling in America. And, that's a sign that something fundamentally is not working. America's social political plumbing, there's a clog somewhere or a leak or whatnot. I used to live in this house. I rented this room from a guy, and in the winters was hopeless because the ductwork ran underneath the house, and somehow something got loose down there where a piece of the ductwork is is gone. So the houses, some houses are built on a crawl space. I've been in one a couple times where the house is built on that, and ductwork and plumbing is all down there. Well, somehow the something had gotten loose in the ventilation or somehow, and uh, so when we needed heat in the winter, you essentially had to heat that crawl space, and then if you're lucky, the house heated up. So you can imagine the bills and expending. Uh, it was a nightmare. I'm glad I left that place. But that's America. Like, oh boy, we're going to do this American social experiment. The founding fathers. I bet you that they got a lot of press this year. You'd almost think they were right there, back uh, in the halls of Congress arguing their position, so to speak. We had scholars, and we have people quoting them to support their argument for how to proceed politically, and it's quite the sight to see. But um, in the end, if you're having that conversation, it means that there's a deficiency there, something's missing. Um, Maybe I'm not the greatest lover. Let me put that out there, right? On on a rare occasion. But if the female is like, I need more of this, or you have to, you know, right? I've got the right, um, I've got the right equipment. I'm bringing the right equipment to the to the event, but I'm not employing it properly, right? And so I need direction, and that's America. America. You want to make social and political love, but your lover is telling you, um, well, we need more attention here or something like that. And if I have to tell you this, it means that even from the beginning, you don't have everything going for it that you think you have. You've got to step up your game, please. So America's never really, from its inception, I believe, it's never been what it proposes itself to be. It's never been. It's not like that we need to fix or repair or amend and stuff like that. It's we've never adhered to the rules. And this is something, I was thinking how I've been in a lot of social situations, right? And I look at the changes and stuff, and sometimes the solution is to the solution for some issue is to simply abide by your word that you originally gave. And um, but instead we heap on more changes, and instead of perfecting the original um, plan, so to speak. I mean, we do better with board games and video games than we do with our own lives and the social political context. Uh, there's some reason for that. I would say that um, white minds and uh, the white mind, white thinking is still employs a lot of creative measures to make sure it stays on top and so other people stay on the bottom, right? I won't go into that. I've been talking about that a lot. So that's a degree of the reason for what we're dealing with. Now, on the flip side, how are you black folks doing? And I mean black folks, I mean the darker your skin, the more diverse your troubles in America, even though this country says it shouldn't be so and that it wants to be the land of the free, home of the brave. I think black people have really personified that. But we've had to do that domestically. I mean, yeah, I mean, send me to war, foreign affairs, and stuff. I'll participate in things like that. It's easy to see that, but if you've got to come to that space in your own house, there's an issue. Are black people being aware of that, living that truth, that we have to do this extra in our own home to protect our values and whatnot, right? I mean, something broken in this nation. We still have racial, just recently, if if you look at the news cycle, I think there were 2 incidents in Texas now, or one in the New York, um, I guess Jews in New York, I think, and then one in a Texas church that are around racism and stuff like that. So something's going on in this nation, right? And it's sad. Doesn't have to be. We'd be in a different space if if America had started out rightly. Do black people understand this? Do they understand what they're seeing and um, this this scheme enacted against us in the land? And further, also financial literacy. Money is how we're going to be able to maneuver, grow, uh, be in places of comfort and whatnot. And we need to be mindful that because the power group just sees us as a consumer class. We're not on one plantation doing one job for all our lives, serving, giving this product or service to the master. We're on various plantations and still pouring out our resources in a lot of diverse ways to people, organizations, companies that just see us as a consumer class and are not concerned about elevating us to positions of power and uh, financial equity with them. Some things to think about. I'm inspired to do this work by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. I've read 3 of his works, and I encourage you to get these as well as soon as you can. A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. I love this book. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson here on YouTube and at powernomics.com. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, for a Black Facebook experience, you know. And there's plenty of other Black sites. You can find your community and flavor. If you have an entrepreneurial mind, check out the Black Business School by Dr. Boyce Watkins. And we're about to jump in to Harriet Beecher Stowe's last chapter of her book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, chapter 45. Before we do that, I want to give more of my 2 cents, about what we've just experienced and read in that book. You know, uh, First, Uncle Tom's Cabin. I had no idea that it was that long, that complex. Um, I was pleasantly disillusioned in a lot of aspects of the book. Um, it, it put a face on America that I had never considered. That conveniently I'm not educated about. I mean, I think I had I, I've mentioned him before. Shop teacher. I went to a vocational school, and every once in a while, this shop teacher was a Jewish man, great guy. He'd pull me into his office, and he would talk about this crazy stuff about identity and for me to try harder and for me to educate myself, be aware and stuff. And he was very enigmatic about these issues that I'm on fire for today. But I was 15, 16, and I had some uh, some personal issues. Just started my journey with drugs and alcohol. So, you know, not there ain't a whole lot of high school kids that uh, care about these things. And so I would never understand, okay, I'm not in trouble, but this is it's a serious moment. Some of you know what I'm talking about. There's some mentor or somebody has pulled you aside, and that there was a urgency, but the message just wasn't, just couldn't grasp it. It was too mature, too real and stuff. So anyway, I had a shop teacher like that. He was always trying to warn me about society, but maybe to him he was being explicit, but I didn't have a damn clue what he was talking about. I do today. Now I understand today, like that. Yeah, back then I really needed some talking to, but I also needed uh, some mentoring around these issues. Because race was going to figure. This particular school was a white school, white neighborhood. Everything was white. I grew up in a white neighborhood. I skin color being an issue between people is actually quite new to me because I grew up in a very homogeneous kind of neighborhood where racists were outliers and weirdos, and not they were not an organized group in my town. They people lived out in the woods who you didn't respect anyway. you know, it wasn't until I start maneuvering or when I try to elevate that racism became real, right? So this disillusionment uh, about the book, the seriousness of race in America, Harriet Beecher still helped bring me to a better, more informed place around that issue. Um, it's not about if you haven't read the book, if you've just hung out here, now it's not some little pamphlet about how some black male slave put a good face on his situation and was ended up, you know, holding his hat, bowing and scraping to white society and white power. You know, we found that he was murdered, abused. Um, not just because of what he's believed, his God, because that's something promoted by the white power. You it's when white power tried to manipulate a behavior based on his God that, oh boy, did that cause some friction. And he was murdered for it. We get a sense, like I've seen Roots, I've seen other movies, television shows, documentaries about slavery, and it wasn't until I slowed down and looked at what this meant for America, the land that I call home, that those skeletons, those bones, oh, they rattle loudly at the slightest breeze, slightest social breeze. You hear the bones of racism, original racism, I should say, rattling off there in the distance. Because I see it when I'm on public transportation. It's evident when I'm trying to get promoted at a job. racist bones start rattling and shaking at when I approach power, when I want to excel, and things like that. And, her book shows me the groundwork of that. That there's a time in this country where the it was a you understood subject. It was taken for granted that black skin meant slavery, white skin meant power and privilege, and it's it's still the status quo for to even today. It's par for the course. It is what still holds sway. It's not out in my face. It's in the background now. Harriet Beecher Stowe's book is about when it was the norm. We're murdering black people on skin color alone, on white privilege alone. It was all you needed to murder, to separate a family, to sell a human being, to buy, brand, rape, castrate, um, you know, exercise this absolute power against an individual. That's the land in which I live. And Harriet, you know, performed kind of CNN. She is the earliest kind of smartphone taking videos and snapshots around America from Kentucky to Louisiana about this uh, slave trade and how she didn't live long enough to see some of the changes. They were good and bad, but I think she left the book. She finished the book with a feeling like not only is this ongoing, this is right before the Civil War, but not only is this ongoing, but I bet this is something that's going to characterize the relationship between black and white people for a long time. If she had that thought, she was right. She was right. You know, um, fortunately, through freedom of speech, which is that water is getting muddied lately. But I can say I'm disillusioned with America, and America needs to realize maybe back in the 1600s, if a black person had just come from Africa and didn't like it here, you could say, go home, go back to where you came from. Not so 200-300 years later, when you've got citizens here, you've got generations here. Ain't nothing African about me. Um, Not even necessarily my skin color. People that live in northern Africa ain't dark and black, right? So there's I don't know. There's nothing universal about black skin in Africa. And what I'll say, I'm a citizen. We are citizens. Should never have to march, riot, have water cannons and police dogs on us, um, and all this. Someone would dismiss my desires as being idealist, but let's talk real here now about America and its implementation of its own documentation that uh, makes it a nation. It's always scrambling to catch up, as though it's like an afterthought that blacks can vote. Blacks are intellectually equal, if not superior, and things like that, right? So I'm a citizen. Why am I struggling to get ahead on my job and being disadvantaged because of my skin color, or you know, why am I the last person sat with on public transportation, right? I mean, that's a big indicator of life. But yeah, standing room only, you know, good 24 inches, enough for another human being to put their butt backside in the seat. But people will stand up. Last seat on the train, people will stand up. I ain't that ugly. I'm not frowning. Very sad. I'm supposed to be a citizen. Black people are citizen. Anyone born here is a citizen. So don't tell me to go anywhere. Yeah, my house is dysfunctional, and I'm not going anywhere. Do you believe Harriet? I think we should. We're going to find out as we move on. She's. I'll be a little spoiler alert. So we got a few minutes out just to lay the foundation, so you can let it sink in for 24 hours or so. Is to say her story is a collection of incidents she's either heard of or witnessed herself. We're going to see that in chapter 45. I think we should believe her. I mean, who wants to make up the these kind of stories? Aren't like, there's no supernatural element to them. It's simply man's cruelty to man. We can Sadly, we can believe that about the world in which we live, and it's sadder to believe that about America. That America still engages in that. There's some kind of murderous spirit in the land. Um, I think racism and religion is just an excuse. Hatred's an excuse. Murder is an aspect of what it means to be part of mankind. Believe Harriet. Uh, I'd say I'll talk about, and I've started to bring this up pretty consistently. America's an unfulfilled vision, an unfulfilled experiment. We'd do better with tearing it down and starting all over. It take a generation to reflect and uh, come back at it fresh. Right now, if a member of the power group is hearing that, their hair is turned uh, pure white, because it means we're going to redistribute wealth, and people are going to have a say, and we're going to create a land where none of that stuff happens. Mars may be the next place. I'll be bones and dust by then. Actually, I'm favoring cremation anyway. So it'd be interesting. Maybe in the afterlife, we still can look and see things going on. So, maybe Mars will be that next experiment where people be like, no, man, we're not doing this racism thing. Do that on Earth, not on Mars. Stay away. Let's really bring mankind together. No, it doesn't. It's not happening in America. So America is an unfulfilled idea. The documents, the deliberations back in 1700s, separating from England. Those are all extreme idealism, but It's not the America even they envisioned, even though they were at the top of the power food chain. America's a poor parent towards its children. Poor parent. It's an alcoholic, dysfunctional parent in a lot of ways. Times are changing. Black folks are under attack and under attrition. I stumbled onto Dr. Anderson's work here, but these books are already 5, 6, 7 years old, and even back then, he was predicting the demise, so to speak, of black folks. And a third point, I think we're seeing, I believe, we're not hearing about it much. I think the spirit is starting to come out in the news cycles that we're looking and experiencing constitutional obsolescence. The Constitution is becoming obsolete. It's not keeping up with, technology has impacted it. Societal changes have impacted it. Our being open to other segments of society, expressions of social group has blown the doors off, and I find the Constitution is not addressing these issues. It doesn't have the stuff. And it's always going to be that way with mankind, because mankind is his own, her own evolving project as well. And we have no limit to where we're going. It's not like mankind will arrive someday at mankind's ultimate idea. I don't see that, because we're too creative and we keep going. Anyway, that's more philosophical stuff. We're not going to go that direction. I'm way over time. I'm going to let you go. I'm Tomlin's Nyback, 365 days towards racial change, day 289 out of the way. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.